Hello and welcome to the State of Soy. I'm Aaron Putsey. In our June edition of the State of Soy, we welcome United Soybean Board CEO Polly Rulin and American Soybean Association CEO Ryan Finley. The conversation focused on organization and issue priorities, including trade, farmer relevancy, and connecting with society's influencers. We covered a lot of ground, but we quickly realized that there was just too much to discuss, so a second segment was needed. So I'm pleased to welcome back for the second of our two-part discussion, Polly Rulin, Chief Executive Officer of the United Soybean Board, and Ryan Finley, Chief Executive Officer of the American Soybean Association. So again, welcome back to you both. And there's just so much stuff that we need twice as much time to be able to dig into it. And again, Polly, it was almost 2 years ago when you came on board with the United Soybean Board. So I have to ask you, why did you want the job?
My gosh, who wouldn't want the job? It's like the premier job in agriculture. It's the second largest checkoff in the country. I'd say dairy producers might argue with me, but I think it's the most progressive checkoff in the country. Soybean farmers and the USB are known for doing some really, really amazing stuff with their investments. And that's a long-term reputation. I mean, it is a fabulous place to work. It's the favorite job I've ever had, and people ask me all the time, are you having fun? I'm just having a ridiculous amount of fun at work, more fun than I've ever had. So I think it's the dream job, right?
And I would pose the same question to you. You're zooming past a year on the job at ASA. You'll quickly be at 2. Why did you want the job at ASA?
I have always loved working directly with farmers, and I've always had a passion for policy, and this is the perfect nexus. And like Polly, I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun. There's certainly challenges with it, but it is a blast. Being able to work with farmers as they work through some of these challenges, I could think of no other place I'd rather be.
And the ASA, both organizations are evolving, and you have to. I mean, with the pace of the issues, with the priorities that farmers are bringing to both organizations, you have to evolve. And I think that's the spirit in which both of you function and operate and carry out your roles. So with that said, tell us about how the ASA is evolving as an organization to really be front and center in serving the needs of the people that you represent.
Sure. I think we're going to do that 2 different ways. We're going to do it externally facing. We did an evaluation of all the types of communication that we have. Communication within policy is really important. How do we communicate to members of Congress? How do we help farmers understand what the issues are that impact them on their farm? So it's all of the external stuff, and that's really important. That's key. So we've spent the last year refining that, improving it, saying what else can we do, what do we need to take away. And so I hope that farmers are able to see a change in the way that information about policy is presented to them. And we do that through a lot of different mediums, and it's important that we consider to look at improving that as a rolling process, not we do it once every 5 or 10 years. It has to be continual. Internally, it's also important that we look at how we're structured. Is it the best way to serve our farmer leaders? And instead of doing it again once every 5 or 10 years, we're going to have to do this on a rolling basis. And so we're making some changes internally to our lobby team in Washington, D.C., and then our team in St. Louis, and how we organize and what we do, some subtle changes there.
And how are you at the USB, Polly, working to help that organization continue to evolve so that it is hyper-relevant to the farmers that you're serving?
Yeah, so that's the important part of that is vision, I think. So we're constantly trying to figure out where is the industry going and where can we make the most difference as far as demand pull goes. So in the last year, we've added some staffers, and folks might say, well, why are you adding staffers at this point in time, right? So the staffers are vice presidents of strategy, and what they do is they review, well, believe it or not, there are a lot of people in this country who want to work for the soybean checkoff, right? We are a well-funded organization, and they know farmers run the organization. So when we do call for concepts or call for projects, we get far more opportunities than we can fund. We hired the vice presidents of strategy so that they can take a look at all the opportunities, the board-directed priorities, the long-range strategic plan, and line up those projects for the best outcome for farmers. And so that is the way we've done it this year, is the strategic vice presidents reviewed more than 550 proposals, which is the most we've ever had in history. And the board now, in 2 weeks, the board will come together as committees and say, gosh, we got a lot of projects to review. Which ones fit our priorities the best? Which ones are best for farmers? And what's the greatest ROI or outcome for farmers in any of these projects?
So from a brand standpoint, how is it and how are you working to make sure that that brand remains a really strong one?
Yeah, I think the innovation and the vision is the way. I mean, people want to do work that matters, right? People, anybody that works for any organization, the top motivator, lots of research has shown this, is that people feel like they're making a difference, and people feel like there's a population that's benefiting from their work, right? And everybody that works at USB, I would say everybody that works at ASA is in it for the farmers, right? We are motivated by the well-being of the farmer. We believe farmers are an important bedrock to this country. We believe they do an important service to the country. So as long as the folks that are working on staff are motivated in the right direction and feel like they're making a difference for a population they care about, that's always going to be a place they want to work.
Yeah, when we're talking to employees at the White House, at U.S. Department of Agriculture, at the Environmental Protection Agency, if it's staff, we're speaking on behalf of soybean farmers.
They get that.
Yeah, they do.
That.
Exactly. That's who we have to reflect, are the soybean farmers, and we bring the soybean farmers actually to those places from time to time to remind them what we're saying isn't just made up. This is the farmer. This is exactly what they're feeling and what they're saying.
And that was the point, and I think the brand of the Iowa Soybean Association is we want to be seen as a credible, transparent, farmer information-based resource, and it sounds like at the national level, that is where ASA is as well among our elected leaders.
Absolutely. We want them to come to us to find out information when they don't know.
How can farmers out there in the field continue to help you reflect that?
Yeah,
brand?
I think it's the farmers that serve on the ASA board are going to continue to go to DC on a regular basis and deliver that message. Here on the countryside, engaging in any aspect of elected officials at the federal level is really important. Invite members of Congress or your senators, Ernst or Grassley, invite them out to the farm. Go to some of the presidential campaign events that are happening around here.
Yeah, we'll have
engage.
a few of those coming up.
Yeah, I know. That's all right. But engage and tell your story. It's not, well, I'm not really sure I understand the issues. Tell the story about your farm. Tell them what you're going through. Explain how this year's weather is impacting you, your perception of how trade is impacting you. Tell your story. That's huge.
And similar from the USB front too, what do you want farmers doing locally that can positively impact the brand of the of the soybean industry?
Yeah, well, we're here today because the state-national partnership, I believe, is stronger than it has been in a long time. So what we do is we work together and make sure that the programs we operate are cohesive and that it's the whole amount of the checkoff that works for farmers, right? So the better we can get on the state-national partnership, the more strength we can have in that relationship, the better off the farmers are. And so as we move forward, I would love to see USB and all the state organizations, the state checkoff organizations, work even more closely to make sure that our strategy is tight, to make sure that we're efficiently spending the whole checkoff dollar, those dollars that the states control and those dollars that the USB farmers control, and make sure that those are the best spent, the best invested for farmer outcomes.
So working together and partnering matter to soybean farmers. Let's hear from one right now from North Central Iowa.
Hi, I'm April Hemis. My question today is, how are the United Soybean Board and the American Soybean Association working together to make farmers like me more profitable?
So farmers may be always at work, focused on the present, but they're always looking as well a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. It's the same at the American Soybean Association, United Soybean Board. So what are we doing right now that's also forward-thinking?
Everything we do is forward-thinking, right? So the two things that come to mind immediately are new products. So we can find new products. I always call it the magic bean. Aaron, you've heard me say it a million times. Food, feed, fuel, fiber. And so a new product like the asphalt that I mentioned in our last show could be an enormous boon, could be an enormous market for soybeans. So those are the things we're always looking for at USB. Those are the things the farmers are always looking for, is what's the next huge market for soybeans that can help draw that demand.
And how are you identifying those opportunities?
Well, we have, so when we put our call for concepts out, everybody that we send our call for concepts, all of the experts in the country say, hey, we've got some great ideas. Here's what we've been thinking of. It's the creative phase of the projects.
So it's not just research that you're doing, but it's also calling on others to send you ideas or concepts.
Oh, it's the power of the community mind. It's not just what can we think of, the 4 or 5 or 73 of us. It's what are all the experts in the country saying, soy straws or soy plastics or soy asphalts, or what's top of mind? What need does the world have that soy can fill? And those are the products that are going to carry us through in the future as far as the demand pull. Of course, the other side of that is our animal customers. I dream of a time when we can grow a soybean that is specifically for chicken feed, that chickens thrive on, that their microbiome thrives on, that they are healthier on, and they're better nourished. Same with our swine customers. So in the future, when we think about what do we need to do, I think about specialized soy for specialized uses. And I think that those streams, those IP streams, could really be profitable for soybean farmers in the future.
Whether aquaculture, swine, pig, you name it. And the same applies on the ASA side as well.
It does, but I want to mention something that Polly does really good, and it's a culture that's at USB that is all about scanning. So it's to your question, how do you identify it? There's this constant scan out there to say, what are the issues that we should be, or research projects we should be engaged with? And whether it is farmer leaders serving on the board or staff, they're constantly in this scan mode, and we feel that a lot at ASA, talking to them on a regular basis. It's neat.
And how are you bringing the farmer, the expectations that farmers have into the mix? Again, we've talked about how the structure is put together, but how are you continually looking to get the farmers' ideas and the voices out there to guide where you're going as well?
Communication, constant dialogue with farmers in the countryside. We have an executive committee, we call it the governing committee at ASA, of 9 farmer leaders. We talk on a very regular basis. And when I say a regular basis, I talk to an officer almost every single day during the week of what is the issue that's impacting you? How do we engage on trade? What is the right tone that we should have? If we're talking biodiesel, what are you hearing from your elected officials? When do you think we should go to EPA? All of these issues, it's about making sure that we're on the right page based on farmers and where they're at and what their opinion is. But it's also saying, where are the political winds shifting? And I know that seems a little weird, but you can be working on a tax provision. So if we're looking at biodiesel and we're looking at a blender's credit, we have to have that prepped. So we're talking to people on the Ways and Means Committee in the House of Representatives, which is the tax committee. And so we have to have a bill ready to go, or at least a provision ready to go, so that if a bill looks like it's going to move, we can drop this provision in and we have what we need. So it's part of how politics work, but it's talking to our farmers, do we have the right language, do we have the right tone in our messaging, and then working with members of Congress to make sure we can place it when it needs to be.
And USB front as well, a very similar approach.
Very similar approach. Part of my job that I love, when we talked about earlier, what do you love, is going to all these meetings that are forward-thinking meetings with all kinds of people who are thinking about vision and picking those pieces out of those meetings that USB can play in that are going to be important in the future. And so it's the same kind of thing. You have to be prepared for what's coming, right? You have to be, as I have said in the past, you have to be ahead of the puck. You can't be playing the puck where it is. You have to be playing the puck where it's going. Right? And that's what both organizations, that's how we serve farmers.
A lot of Wayne Gretzky's are in the soybean industry, is what you're saying. And for the farmer out there who's getting a better sense of where the ASA is, where the USB is, why should they want to serve? I mean, you constantly need to be churning additional leaders and directors, and maybe they say, I can't take that much time, I don't know the issues well. What can you do to alleviate their concerns and make them want to step up and serve?
Well, I would say only farmers who want to serve the rest of their population and who want to make decisions on all farmers' investments, be that membership investments or be that checkoff investments, should serve. And that's probably all farmers, because who doesn't want to help their population, want to serve their community, be more profitable and more sustainable into the future? And that's exactly the kind of farmer that will do well on our board. Those visionary farmers, those ones who want to serve and have a service mentality, and who understand that they are assuring the future for their children and their children's children.
Sound like people you know?
Absolutely. It's a farmer organization. They need to be involved, and they need to run it. And every now and then they have a little fun. I think over the last year, while it has been really difficult engaging on this trade issue, there have been some lighter moments. And when Rolling Stone magazine calls your farmer leader, John Heistorfer, here in Iowa and wants to interview him, that's kind of a unique experience that farmers are in Rolling Stone.
If you could spend more time doing one thing in your job, what would it be?
Talking to farmers more. There's a lot of time that we spend on administrative stuff, day-to-day stuff. It's emails, it's endless meetings, and all of that is good. That's why we exist. But being able to communicate more with farmers on a regular basis is what I would love to spend more time doing.
Sound
good. Less email, more vision and strategy. That's what it would be for me. And I'm moving as I get in the job longer and longer. It's moving that, well, not less email, but it's moving toward the vision and strategy area, and that's the place. That's my sweet spot. I love that.
So if you could invent one thing to help you do your job better, what would it be?
Time
machine?
Bot to take care of my email intelligently and in a good communicative fashion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything,
Yeah,
if you could invent one thing?
Oh, if we could reduce email, that would be great.
Okay. So you mentioned the Rolling Stones. What a magazine that you enjoy the most?
Oh, a magazine that I enjoy the most would be Outside magazine. So
Okay.
I enjoy spending a little bit of time in the woods, and that would be my magazine of choice.
Oh, I'm a nerd. I like Harvard Business Review. I read it cover to cover every time. As people who follow me on Twitter know, because I'm always posting articles.
So you maybe kind of alluded to it. So your favorite hobby? What do you enjoy doing the most when you're not centered and focused on soybean issues? What's something you enjoy doing?
Well, I'm a self-admitted workaholic, and everybody that knows me knows that, but like Ryan, I love to hike. When I lived in Colorado, I did a lot of hiking, and I'm trying to do hiking here, too. If I could just manage the ticks and the heat, I think I would be even more into hiking in Missouri.
Hobbies?
Yeah, I enjoy spending time with my family. I have 2 children who are 8 and 11, and my wife and I enjoy being outside. If there was one specific activity in the summer that I would enjoy doing, it'd be to jump on the bike and go for a spin. So Ragbri, for those fans, I have not done that yet. It's on my list. So most meaningful piece of advice that a farmer has given you in your role as a CEO?
Oh, wow. I remember this piece of advice, and that is, whatever else happens, whatever other pressures you are under, you have to look yourself in the mirror every morning. Never make a decision that would endanger your integrity.
That's good. Patience. That is a challenge for me personally, is to have patience, but you have to have patience when you're working in policy.
What is your a mentor, someone who has influenced you, who stands out?
Sure. At one of my previous jobs, I worked with a gentleman that was a boss, but he was a coach. And I'm a big believer in a team philosophy. Are we all on the same team? And so there's a gentleman that was a great mentor, and he was a great coach, and it was both personal and professional.
Yeah, I had a former board member when I was at Beef, who has passed away now, that was not only a colonel in the Army, but a professor of statistics at University of Tulsa and a board member of mine. He was an amazing thinker. I miss him every day. I talk to him regularly. He was a great mentor for me.
Soybean yields, do a little prediction here. So vision out maybe a year from now, will we have a soybean supply that is bigger or less than around the 1 billion that we have right now?
As somebody that works in politics, I need to ask you to clarify. Are we talking just Iowa? Are we talking nationally? Are we talking carry-out or actual production?
National carry-out.
Well, I think that we are going to see
stammering, stumbling.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? How do I answer this both directions? No, I think at the end of this year we're going to see a really high carry-out. As we roll into the next year, we're going to eat away at that.
Yeah, we've been trying to project revenue for the next 3 years at the checkoff, and yield is part of revenue predictions. And we're just trying to hedge our predictions and also make sure we have enough in reserves to make it through, because I think nobody's seen conditions like this. I mean, even our experts say, I don't know. So that's what I'm going to say. I don't know. Let Ryan answer.
Online resource, where an online resource that you would recommend to farmers, and of course, we already know that we're recommending UnitedSoybean.org and we're recommending soygrowers.com, but another online resource that you'd recommend?
I go to Congress. There's congressional websites. There's a number of them. So both your representatives' website, I am always looking at that to see what is the member actually putting out, and then what are the pieces of legislation that are out there? What is the text of those bills?
So I think it's really important that farmers get out of their comfort zone and look at the general environment that's surrounding them as far as society. So there's one thing I get in my inbox every morning. It's called the Skim. And it puts all the news in perspective and bullet points, and I read that every morning, and it really helps me think outside my own sphere.
When somebody catches you and they don't know what the ASA does, what is your elevator speech?
Oh, great question. We're a policy organization for soybean farmers across the country, and that has been a lot easier to answer over the last few months because everybody has heard about soybeans in the news.
Yeah, marketing and promotion, and I always say it's driven by soybean farmers and paid for by soybean farmers.
Topic that hasn't really gotten the traction that perhaps it should have, that is going to have real implications long-term on the soybean industry?
I think at some point soybean farmers are really going to have to think about how much they produce impacts their ability to be profitable. And I think that's a very strong tension because of how we get paid currently. But I will say that at some point in time, we're going to have to think about, gosh, we make a lot of soybeans. What is the wise way to kind of have more control over our future, and to think about the longer term of all the yield and all the...
And other commodity groups have been having those tough conversations, and we've evolved a lot. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when how are we going to grow enough soybeans?
Right.
So this has changed. How would you answer that?
I think there have been billions of dollars that have been put into venture capital or from venture capital into ag startups the last couple of years. I think we are going to see something disruptive in the next 5 years in agriculture, and I don't know if that will be a production system. I don't know if it's going to be alternative protein sources. I don't know what that's going to look like, but there's a lot of money that's gone into R&D within agriculture specifically. I think we should be looking for a disruption.
So you serve a national role, so I need to close with this question. Fill in the blank. When I think of Iowa, I think of...
soybeans, of course, and pigs. Soybeans and pigs, that's what I think of. And the beautiful green rolling hills.
Yeah, soybeans. Absolutely. This is. I mean, U.S. agriculture is incredible, but when you drive through the Midwest, this is the heart of it right here, and it's a lot of fun to see.
The closing comment, the thing you want soybean farmers to remember from this conversation, first from the ASA standpoint.
Don't be afraid to call your member of Congress. Literally pick up the phone, call their office. Don't be afraid to invite them to your farm. Engage, create a relationship. Members of Congress see thousands of lobbyists. They don't see thousands of farmers. Create that relationship.
And from the USB.
Remember that all the cash in the system comes from the consumer side, so open up your minds and think about where your product goes and who you depend on for your livelihood every day.
And with that, we'll need to leave our conversation there. Thanks to our panelists, Polly Rulin and Ryan Finley, and to the Machine Shed Restaurant in Urbandale for hosting this timely and informative conversation. In our August edition of the State of Soy, we'll dive into water quality, soil health, and the latest innovations helping farmers improve the ROI of every acre farmed. What techniques are most proven, and which over the next 2 to 3 years hold the most promise. Until then, the very best to you from the Iowa Soybean Association. Now go make it a great day.